It happened. I've reached another milestone. We've reached the devil's numbers of subs. As such, I felt it was appropriate for a long overdue toy review. And this time, it's the Demon's Driver. Now, as far as drivers in the Kamen Rider Revice series go, I dislike most. And honestly, if it wasn't for a convention impulse buy, I likely wouldn't have bought the Revice driver. The Demon's Driver, however, I had a long series of wants for this thing, going back to Twitter threads as well as memes in my own Revice reviews.
My fucking money!
Coming in as one of the more expensive of the deluxe drivers, but also being in limited quantity due to it being a premium Bandai exclusive product with limited distribution and availability. It's easy to see why this is one of the more sought after drivers in the Kamen Rider Revice series. The packaging from an outside perspective is a bit more toned down than your standard deluxe drivers, but not as artistically styled as a CSM. Inside the box comes the Spider Vistamp, the belt and back clasp, 2 Vistamp holders, and of course, the main Demon's Driver. First, let's take a look at the Vistamp. Looking at the Spider Vistamp, if you've only gotten the Vistamps dedicated to the Igarashi siblings, this being Revi, Live, and Genu, their Vistamps generally have a bluish-white marble effect to them, while the Spider has a gray and white marble effect, similar to the Bata Vistamp and the ones the Deadman use. Now, as far as drivers go, this thing is beefy as far as a tech perspective. As most drivers usually rely on 3 AAA batteries, Demon's hungry self requires getting juiced up by 4 AA batteries. You know what else uses 4 AA batteries? The original Game Boy. Outside of the power switch in the back, there are a few more input options. At the top, there is a scanner that reads the information from the supplied Vistamp. Now, this doesn't have to be a direct point of contact, as although there is a rail guiding the Vistamps, going outside of this will still allow it to be read. The point of readability does not come into play until the Vistamp is pressed, and the top red square plays 0 factor into this. This will trigger the animation on the front screen. It's important to note that to be show accurate, you would press the Vistamp onto the screen. But in reality, there is no scanning function. It's just a button. And since this does not have an outer screen protector, for collectors who manage to be so lucky, I would say avoid stamping the Vistamp or getting a universal screen protector that you can cut and apply yourself. The sides can be pressed in to initiate Geno mixes, adds, and the finishers. The muscle fibers that make up these side portions bend in during this process, which adds an organic feel to this driver. The speaker is housed towards the front of the driver, which makes it line up with the screen where most of the attention is directed. The screen really is the big appeal of this driver. Having a 8x8 large pixel assortment, which gives you a total of 64 pixels, these use RGB to achieve its coloration in corresponding with its internal chipset. This creates one of the most complex animations and visualizations from a purely digital front out of any other Kamen Rider driver available on the market. The look of the driver is very old school meets new school, featuring a center focal point of the driver, but not fully interlocking with its transformation collectible gimmick. Color-wise, I would say that I am biased. This being red and black with silver makes it a top tier color option for me. Secondhand purchasers may have to deal with a $250 or higher price point, but the price at release, it being around $180, is a steal of a deal for the functionality this thing has. For its original pricing, I'm gonna give this a B. For availability, an F. For functionality, it's gonna get an S, and from a pure appearance standpoint, also an S, thus giving us an overall rating of A. This driver is an overall recommended for collectors and fans alike. However, the biggest thing that holds this thing back is honestly availability. I understand that with the given tech, that warranted the higher price point, but Bandai, limiting this to its premium shop, limited its availability, and thus the only way to get it at its lowest price point was to place a pre-order for it. So, if you go to a reseller market, you're going to be looking at a 60 to 80 or even more of a markup, and that's what hurts this thing. Honestly, if a CSM is issued out on either this or the Veil driver, the only real changes that I would want to be seen besides the usual would be to add more durability and a scratch-proof screen, and to change out the silver pieces for being actual die-cast metal. Now, with this review out the way, there is only one thing left for me to do. Henshin!